What are the real secrets to healing your body and obtaining optimal health? In a world where there's so many health challenges, from chronic illnesses to autoimmune issues, and with there being so little help that you can get from the traditional medical system, with all its good intentions, just doesn't provide solutions for these things. So what can you do? If that question has been weighing on you, you're going to love my guest today. Dr. Fab is an author, a speaker, chiropractor, and a heart-based entrepreneur. He's also been featured on shows like Dr. Phil and The Doctors.
Joined now by Dr. Fab Mancini, a healthy living expert.
I'm here with chiropractor Dr. Fabrizio Mancini.
Healthy living expert, Dr. Fab Mancini.
He's an internationally acclaimed inspirational speaker. He's an author. He's an educator. He's a philanthropist. And he's the president of Parker University in Dallas, Texas.
I asked Dr. Fab to come on the show to talk about his expertise in the area of healing, because he's helped thousands of clients to heal emotionally, physically, and spiritually. His core philosophy centers around that if your body gets the things that it needs, it will choose to heal because it's designed to do that. The question is, what does your body need? If you're interested in learning about how to heal your life and your body, then tune in for today's show. I'm your host, Eric Copeland, and welcome to another episode of The Music of Life. I'll see you inside. Dr. Fab Mancini, welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here today.
Well, I'm more excited because I got to meet you last year. It was, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it was the year before. Who knows? Don't even answer that question. Let's just say it was last year. And, our mutual friend, Mike Koenig's connected us. I helped you with some video, but and you gave me a speaking opportunity actually at your event in Dallas. But I wanted to bring you on because you are such a multifaceted person. I'm really impressed with your mindset. I'm really impressed with the type of community that you built, at your events. That's all around like health and wellness, and with touches of woo, some spirituality and metaphysics in there. I love that stuff being bridged. So if you're someone who's maybe a Greg Braden friend, or you're interested in Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and you're someone that wants to heal your body, your life, I think you're going to find Dr. Fab a wonderful guest that you guys are in for a treat. With that, Dr. Fab, I'd love you to tell us a little bit about your, just a little bit of your backstory. Like, how did you get to where you're at now? I mean, you've been on the Dr. Phil show, you've been on NBC. I mean, you're quite a bit of a celebrity in the whole wellness space. Don't blush.
It's interesting because I often say that sometimes our challenges, our difficulties are defining moments. And for me, it came when I was 16 years old. I was visiting South America, Colombia, where I'm from. We had moved to Miami 3 years before that. And we were going down there for Christmas break. And the first night we were there was a robbery in which I found myself being woken up in the middle of the night with the back of a gun hitting my head, telling me where the safe is. I didn't know, so I tried to yell, and they took my socks off and put them in my mouth. And then I tried to get out and fight them off. There were around 10 of them. And they tied my hands and tied my feet, and they kept taking my socks off and hitting me. And then, because I didn't know, right, we were just a guest in my aunt's house that night. She insisted in staying with her. My brother Aldo was next door, and I hear him yelling, and they come back with their hands full of blood and said, "We killed your brother. You better tell us where the safe is," and kept hitting me. "Oh, we're going to kill everybody in this house." And I'm thinking of my aunt and their two children. My uncle was out of town that night. And by some miracle, the neighbors might have seen a commotion. The police came, they fled. And I found myself in the middle of the night at the hospital. The blessing was that my brother, unfortunately, only had about 27 stitches, but he was alive in his head. And I was bruised. But I found myself telling myself, this could have been the end of my life at 16 years old. And this is where I believe that I wish somebody before that would have told me that in order to go through this journey in life, we must have a reason for living, a clear purpose for why we're here. What is it that we want to accomplish? And even if that's evolving through time, you must be very clear as to what that is. So 2 weeks after that robbery, I had a vision that I was going to be a doctor. So that got me into that space. I was accepted at one of the best pre-med schools in the nation, which is the University of Dallas in Texas. And then from there, I have been accepted at Harvard and Johns Hopkins for medical school. And but then I was involved in an accident, ended up in a chiropractic office because a hospital doctor sent me to his chiropractor. And that introduced me to the world of prevention. So in that world of prevention, I chose to become a doctor of chiropractic. And then later on, I studied acupuncture, nutrition, energy medicine, technology now, biohacking, everything that you see today as popular. This was 38 years ago. And that's one of the reasons that I contributed so much to that space that they decided to name me one of the Hall of Famers for the Wellness Revolution. There's only like 12 of us in that space, people that have contributed the most to the wellness movement. And from then, I practiced for 10 years. Then I became president of Parker University. At 33 years old, I became one of the youngest presidents in the United States of any university. And then I did that for 13 and a half years, and I retired, and I became a media expert. I initially started with my own radio show with Hay House, with 1 million listeners every Thursday. And then Dr. Phil asked me to be on his show. So I became the expert for Dr. Phil, then the doctors, and then Fox News, especially for the last 12 years. And I've been in that space, writing books, doing lectures, being in the media, and inspiring millions of people to put health as a priority and really understand where does that all come from. And when I define health, like I did in my last best-selling book, The Power of Self-Healing, is that health is physical, emotional, and spiritual. And you must really break it down into that way. So this is really my journey, and one that I've been very blessed to be in that space, to be able to keep searching and researching what is it that allows us to fulfill our potential as human beings. And that's what I've been taking other people in a journey with.
That's awesome. That's cool. I knew you had been involved with Dr. Phil. It's cool to hear the little backstory behind that he brought you on to help to be like the expert.
He had been my patient for many years, and he says, like, I can't believe I waited so long to invite you to my show. He wanted to talk about my book at that time, and it was a great show. And from then, of course, the book became an international best-selling book all over the world. And I've been still lecturing. It's been 10 years, and I'm still lecturing on that book.
That's awesome. Your book, The Power of Self-Healing, you said there were 3 areas of healing. There was spiritual, physical, and emotional. Is that right?
Yeah. So what we discovered is I went ahead and interviewed over 50 people that had healed from conditions that they were told they would never heal. And I was very curious. Many of them were my patients. There were other people's patients. So I started listening and interviewing them. And they started sharing with me, in their opinion, what was it that they felt was actually what actually allowed them to heal. And some of the answers were physical, like there were 3 main things physically. One was nutrition was very high on the list. If they changed their nutrition, their body was able to heal something that they were told they couldn't heal. The other one was exercise. And we all know how important exercise is, but some of these people really credited exercise for helping them heal. And then the last one was having a holistic provider, like a doctor of chiropractic, an acupuncturist, an energy medicine, a health coach, somebody like that, that can really help them. And then emotionally, there were 3 emotions that most of them share that were the key emotions. The first one was forgiveness. There were a lot of people that felt like their anger, resentment had held them to the point that it changed their chemistry, tore their body down, and that caused the illness. So when they were able to release that, actually their body were able to heal. The other one was gratitude, being grateful for what you have instead of always thinking you got to have more. And then the last one was having unconditional love for yourself and others, understanding that unconditional love or love begins with you. And then once you give that to yourself, now you can share that with others. And then on the spiritual world, many of them share with me that prayer and meditation were key to helping them heal, whether it was them praying or other people praying for them meditating or doing guided meditations. The other one was being with nature, like connecting with nature, whether it's taking walks, watching the sunrise, the sunset, grounding on the beach. And then the last one, which I thought it was interesting, is having a clear purpose. See, many of these people, when they were told they had a terminal illness, they weren't ready to go. They had a mission. They had a purpose for being here. You know, some of the people I interviewed said, you know, I've been waiting all my life to walk my daughter down the aisle. I'm not going to let this disease stop me from that. Other people said, I just started a brand new business. I can't let these people go. You know, I've had a lot of investors or whatever. I'm not going anywhere. Some other people were saying, you know, I'm too young. I still got a lot of long to live. I'm not going to let somebody's opinion become my sentence, life sentence. So those were actually the most important things that came out of the book. And my research for almost 20 years that I was asking people about what made them heal.
That's amazing. As I'm listening as you're speaking, and I'm thinking of, you know, situations in my own life. I'm thinking of things I've heard some of my friends. I know some health issues certain friends are dealing with. You know, I've had my own minor, what I consider minor ones. I know how frustrating it can be when you, especially if you're dealing with something chronic, something that's just like nagging at you. And there's a lot of, there's so much like they call it autoimmune, these names we give for things like autoimmune things, but basically, you know, chronic fatigue, arthritis, things that just, if you were to go to the traditional medical system, are not going to really have any other answer for you other than here's something to help mitigate the symptoms. And by the way, there's about 10 side effects you might need other medications for. But if you have symptoms with those, don't worry, we got 10 more medications for the side effects that those might induce, and on and on. And next thing you know, you're taking 20 pills a day, you know, and you're a lab rat for, you know, a pharmaceutical industry with no light at the end of the tunnel. And that just, to me, just seems like, it seems inhumane. It seems, it'd be like if I went to a mechanic and I said, I have a strange noise or knocking sound in my motor and I can feel it's loud. He says, here you go. Here's some earplugs. These are amazing. You put these earplugs in, they will reduce the decibels to the level precisely where you won't even hear it, you know? And I'm like, well, cool, but my engine's still messed up, you know? And I look at it as like, if we had that level of service at a mechanic, we would, you know, we'd be on Yelp in a second. Like, we would never go to that person again. And I'm not saying that I know that it's more, I'm talking about the system at large. You know, I'm not making a critique of a specific doctor. I know doctors very much believe in wanting to help people for the most part. But I think the thing you brought up that I want to kind of elaborate a little bit on is this idea of a holistic approach, where I know that your foundation is in chiropractic, and I know that you talk about how if you can get the body in the proper environment, and if you can get it everything that it needs, it's just designed to heal. So it's about being willing to kind of look at different areas of your life. What would be your advice to someone who's feel like they've had an ongoing issue or something that's just nagged at them or autoimmune, and they don't really know what to do about it? They're getting offered pills instead of solutions. In general, like what would you hope that person would understand or wake up to that would help them begin to move the dial, or at least find the answers that they need?
That's a great question. And some of the foundational things that I've discovered over the last 38 years are, number one, understanding three things: that your body has everything that it needs to heal. Your body is a self-healing organism. It is designed to heal you as you go through things in life. Number two, that your body has systems in place like cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal system, neurological system, lymphatic system. All of those systems are made up of organs and cells that are designed to keep your body in balance. But the last one, and the most important one, is that your body you need to try to understand what caused the problem rather than focus on managing the symptoms. And you said it very clearly. We live in a healthcare system that is actually designed to manage symptoms. Now, less than 5% of the urgent cases in healthcare are the ones that you end up going to a hospital or you need urgent care for. Less than 5%. Over 80% of our healthcare costs and what makes people and humanity suffer, over 80% is chronic illnesses. And it's your heart disease, cancer, arthritis, obesity, chronic pain, autoimmune diseases, all of the things you mentioned, digestive issues. These chronic illnesses, what it means is that the word chronic means that your body has lived with that condition for a period of time. So sometimes that could be 6 weeks, sometimes that could be 8 weeks, but anything longer than that is considered chronic. The challenge with chronic is like being stressed, right? And let's say like chronicity can actually, being stressed can be actually good. So for instance, do this metaphor. You want to get in shape, so you get on a treadmill. And you're running on the treadmill for 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe even an hour. And then that's great. That's going to help you build your resistance. It's going to help your circulatory system. It's going to help you build your muscles, etc. But now, what about if that treadmill never stopped? If all of a sudden now you're running for 3 hours, 6 hours, 2 days, 5 days, that's what chronicity is the problem. The body is designed to heal conditions short term. But when a condition persists, it's usually because we're not paying any attention to what caused it in the first place. So let's take chronic pain, for instance. As you know, we have an opioid epidemic where millions of people, 80% of all the opioids, the painkillers, are consumed right here in our country. Over 80%. That means that we are addicted to painkillers. And it's the number one prescription that is over-abused by almost every physician out there. So what happens with chronicity of pain is when I do a TV show, I bring a fire alarm that I buy at Home Depot. And then I tell the host, pain is the alarm system of the body. It's a good thing, just like this alarm. This is a smoke alarm. And when it detects smoke, what happens? And then they say, it beeps. And I press the red button and it beeps. And I said, but if that beeping never stops, what happens? You get annoyed. So what do you want to do? Let's say I cover the speaker and now I can hear maybe 30% of the noise. I still hear it, but then it is better on my ears. So then I said, but what did I do for the smoke? Did that in any way stop the smoke or even the fire that is behind the smoke? And they said, no. He said, that's what medications do. They numb the pain, they block the pain, but they don't do anything for what's causing the pain in the first place. So then I said, but it gets worse. That 30% is still so annoying that I just want to jank it off the ceiling or throw away the battery, right? That's what we do. Well, that's like a surgery. How many times have we seen people cut something out that you cannot put back in the body, but just when you want to stop the pain? So then I said, but did I at all change anything about the smoke or perhaps the fire that was going to burn your house down? And they said, no. And I said, that's why we have a broken healthcare system in the world, because over 80% of our conditions are being treated primarily chemistry, and the body does not respond to chemistry only. We have to find out what's causing this. And stress is one of those factors, right? You have a lot of stress in the world. You need to address that stress. Or if you're doing something that you're doing repetitive behavior that is overusing a body part, you're going to get in trouble, right? Or if you all of a sudden are eating food that is very detrimental for your digestive system, you're also going to create maybe an ulcer, or you're going to have some digestive issues or a leaky gut or whatever the case may be. So the whole point to understand here is the body is meant to heal. Pain is a friend, it's not the enemy. And if you focus on the root cause of your problem, then you have a much better chance in solving it than if you just keep focusing on managing the symptom. That's only going to prolong it. Yeah. And like you said earlier, it's going to cause side effects because it's a foreign agent. The body has to respond to it. So the body fights it. And that's what a side effect is. And the more drugs you put into the body, I think the statistic I heard the other day is that Americans over 60 years old are using 4 to 5 pills a day to make it through the day.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. You know,
Yeah.
we shouldn't be in a society like that.
All with pretty scary side effects too. You know, it's I think I don't want to quote any stats unless I verify it, but I seem to remember something over 200,000 deaths a year in the United States on for contraindications or something.
It's a second or third leading cause of death in the United States.
Yeah. So there's a key point that I'm hearing you repeat, and I want to drill into that a little bit. It's understanding what the root cause is of something. And let's unpack that for a little bit here, because I'm always been fascinated with certainly the spirituality side, but in a more practical sense, the coaching, and I have a life coaching certification. And when we're dealing with people, what you're helping them to realize is that they have a choice. At the end of the day, you have a choice to actually feel good or not. And a lot of times when you're stuck in what you consider something stressful, it really comes down to a perception about the world and yourself that you kind of feel locked into, and you haven't considered or been able to see another perspective. And there's techniques for helping you get down and kind of make that flip. Getting into that space, it seemed just about helping people live their lives. But I think there's a much deeper, profound thing that's going on there, because now if we look at a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, might be familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. And there's a new documentary coming out by the time this podcast will be out, or in the end of this month in June, called The Source That's Within You. And they did a scientific study at the University of California in San Diego. Did you see that? Did you get a chance to see that yet?
No, we were both speaking at Dave Asprey event just a couple of weeks ago, so I got a chance to see a little preview of it. Yeah, for free in I think it's about a week or so. Yeah, but I won't get too much detail. But the beauty in it is that some really skeptical, just left brain scientists took a look at his work and took people's blood samples and biometrics and hair samples before and during and after a retreat. And the people that had the healing experiences, they proved laboratorily, evidentially, that there are some incredible things that they can't explain. We're talking about proteins that block the docking of the of DNA delivery between the SARS virus and the cell, aka the COVID. You're seeing exosomes, thousands of exosomes just flood the body that literally turn cancer off like a light switch. We're talking about one girl's thyroid grew back after having been surgically removed, and it was functional. A doctor who was a neurologist with 40% of his bone marrow was cancerous, gave up, was done. No medical technology or could do anything about it at this point. 7-day retreat, cancer-free. And it's a fascinating thing, because on the one hand, you hear participants or people can have a deeply mystical experience, but evidentially, you're looking at the body, you see these profound changes. So there's obviously something there. I think the new revolution in health does come back to that, where it all begins. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. What is our relationship with stressors, and how do these things kind of end up creating this cascade of symptoms down the road that we seek physical, solutions to mask, when we need to kind of start to go backwards and try to get to that starting point? What are your thoughts on that? What's your advice, Dr. Fab? I'll give you a few insights that make a lot of clarity. So in the world of science, many years ago, I started this many years ago, we had the world of genetics, and everybody was studying genetics, and that's your DNA. That's your genetic makeup of the body. Mm-hmm. And we were saying that was over 80-90% of what we will become. And then we'd realized that was absolutely the opposite, that our DNA, our genetics, only are a predisposition, but actually 10 to 15% only of everything we have become, our illnesses, everything, are genetically inclined. So a new field arose called the epigenetics world. And the epigenetics world showed that what determined whether your gene was activated or not, it was your environment. So epigenetics is the environment around the cell dictates what the cell becomes. So then you take that expansion, and now you realize that people like Jim Rohn, that said you become the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with, he was actually right. If you live in an environment that is very pessimistic, whether it's at work or at home, you're going to get depressed. You're going to be anxious. You're going to get stressed. But if you live in an environment that you practice a lot of prayer and meditation and healing, and it's a clean environment, and it's a very holistic and peaceful inner, environment, that's going to be very healthy. So understanding that epigenetics, your environment around yourself, the people you surround with, the homes you live, the work you have, the cities you live in, everything around your environment is actually contributing to who you become and how you deal with disease more than anything. So pay attention to that. That's number one. Number two, then we notice in the world of neuroscience that for years we were told that the brain does not change very much. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, we discovered a new science called neuroplasticity, that the brain is actually changing all the time and adapting to the environment around us all the time. And that you can actually change belief systems. You can change the way your brain functions. You can increase the activity of your brain. You can increase all of this productivity only by simply shifting your behaviors. So understanding epigenetics, neuroplasticity, then we move into another realm, which I think Albert Einstein said probably best than most people. And that is, he says that circumstances never define the person. What defines the person is how we respond to those circumstances. So that empowerment that you talked about is the ability to respond, right? Some people call that responsibility, right? Because it's an ability to respond. Many times we forget that we have the power to respond differently. And that just because we heard an opinion doesn't mean that that opinion is a fact and is the only option. It's just an opinion. And if you want to change an opinion or get a different opinion, do not go to the same specialty or the same type of background of the person that gave it to you. Go to somebody totally the opposite. So if you have a surgeon that said, you're going to have to need surgery, great, doctor, thank you so much for your opinion. Now you take all that MRI or the x-rays or whatever scan you did, and you take it to somebody like a doctor of chiropractic that is going to focus on everything but surgery and drugs first. Anything that we can do to help you before we introduce surgery or drug, we're going to help you. Or maybe a naturopath, or perhaps an acupuncturist, they're going to give you a totally different opinion than the surgeon opinion. Then you can compare and use common sense in that process. So this thing that we mentioned is that we have to understand that this has been an evolution of awareness. And we need to be conscientious that at the end of the day, we only have one body. You have to decide what's right for you, and only you have that choice. And I often tell people that the key to health is very simple to me. It's making a choice today that was better than the one I made yesterday. So if it comes to our meals, can I eat a little bit healthier today than I did yesterday? It could be maybe one less soda, one less coffee, one less cheeseburger, whatever. But just one decision today that was better than yesterday. That it will ensure that tomorrow I'm going to be healthier than yesterday. But what about your relationships? We live in a toxic world of relationships, a lot of abuse going on, not only physical, but emotionally and spiritually. We have a lot of stress out there in relationships. Make a decision today that perhaps you're going to have a better relationship with yourself. You're going to stop beating yourself up. Or perhaps you're going to be more patient with a habit that you're trying to change. Or perhaps you're going to give yourself the benefit of the doubt that you can get out of this mess that you find yourself in a relationship. Or perhaps that you're going to leave the person that is making you feel like you're insignificant, unworthy, and find somebody that can really appreciate who you are. Even if it's yourself, right? Even if it's just a mirror that you buy and you put it in front of yourself and you say, you know what, Fab, I love you. You're amazing. You're the greatest. You're going to do great things out there. You're worth it. Just wake up every day with that attitude. And that's kind of how I've been developing or evolving in this world we call wellness and holistic healing, is to empower people to recognize that it's okay to have differences of opinion out there, but you need to take more ownership of the choices that you make, because ultimately you're the one that's going to have to pay the price for it.
What I've noticed is, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, because I love what you said. Like I see and believe in the vision of it. And then what's coming up in my mind is I also know that there's things that have been coming up in the world that present some new and unique challenges to these things. And I want to talk about those a little bit, how I see it, and get your thoughts on that. Because I think I make this show and do this channel because I really like being a bridge. I've realized I've always been in this position where, you know, I can help someone maybe explain something, or there's something inviting about it, where I'm interested in people that I have compassion for people that are willing to learn. Okay. I understand that we can, and I know the frustration of being open to learning, but not knowing where to turn. Okay. And this is, I think, more prevalent than ever today in every one of those areas that you've discussed: the medical system, relationships, the stressors, even dietary things. I hear a big "yeah, but" coming up in people's minds, and it's a "yeah, but, Dr. Fab, one person saying eat this way and seed oils are bad, another one saying it's good." There's a lot of clutter and confusion around principles that work even in that space. Spiritually, there's a lot of division. Some people, there's like dogmatic religious aspects. There's so free spirited that you're kind of like no good on earth at the same time too. You have a lot of things in that area. Relationships, as you mentioned, people aren't taught how to proper communication skills. In other words, it's like the wisdom of the world, that's the time-honored wisdom that's been passed down, that funny enough already has many of these things solved, has somehow the signal to noise ratio has become so distorted. Like I want to like smack people around and help them like get to an understanding of like, how do you get to some core, simple to understand principles? Where do you find truth and how do you know when you found it? That'd be my question.
That's a great question. And yes, I mean, I'm old enough to understand that once the internet came into being, it gave people access to information that perhaps was readily available. But it also, with social media, it gave people the opportunity to become an influencer without really having done nothing in their life. I mean, look how many people have become influencers just because they're popular, but now what they say makes a difference in people's life, right? And we've seen, that from reality TV people that have become mega influencers to, other people out there that just spend a lot of time and energy in social media and know how to build a following. But I'm going to break it down to you so you understand that it doesn't have to be that difficult. So I've realized that there is two things primarily that determine what is truth. The first one is understanding and having clarity around your purpose. Who are you? Who are you? That's very important. And what are you here to do? What is your mission in life? And then second, once you align with your purpose and you know what that is, what are the set of values that you have discovered that are true to you? Not your parents, not your grandparents, not your girlfriend, not your boyfriend, not your friends, not your teachers, not your politicians, you. Because ultimately, and I said it regarding health, and I said regarding life, ultimately, you have one life to live. You get to choose how you want to live it. You get to choose what belief system you want to get rid of. You get to choose what belief system you want to create. And then, the secret is very simple. So once you identify your clarity, your mission, or your purpose, and then you identify a set of values. Like, for instance, my purpose is to learn to unconditionally love myself so I can learn to unconditionally love others. I have found that loving myself is the foundation for everything in my life, because loving myself means I am increasing my self-worth. When I increase my self-worth, now I think I am worthy of receiving. See, the biggest thing with receiving is that people don't think they're worthy of receiving, so they talk themselves subconsciously out of it. So then once you identify the set of values, I mean, that purpose of, so for me, a value, right, is number one, to have integrity. Because I realized that one of the things that helps my self-love is to make sure that what I think, what I say, and what I do are the same. See, many people out there, they think one way, they say another, and they do another. And that's being lack of integrity. So that's a simple of a value with a mission. But this is the secret. The whole idea of how to manifest that in your life, I boil it down to very simple things. The first one is your mindset. And there's been a lot of discussion out there about mindset, but it really does begin with your mind. You see, if you have a belief system, let's take health, for instance. If you have a belief system that as you get older, you're going to start feeling achy, getting wrinkled, you're going to be overweight, you're going to have all these health issues, right? That's the mentality that people have. That's a belief system. But let's say that with my thoughts, I'm able to change that belief system. And now I become aware that, you know what? Maybe we're meant to be 120 years old. Maybe 60 is the 30 that we used to think about, right? Or 80 is the 30. And then you start thinking differently about your age. So once you start thinking differently about your health and your age, what does that do? It allows you to change your behavior regarding what you do every single day. You can't change or sustain new behavior with an old level of thinking. You know, you can talk yourself into it. Okay, I'm going to eat healthy today. I'm going to eat healthy today. That's fine. You probably will eat healthy today, but then tomorrow you'll go back to the same old, same old. That's why habits are so powerful, because habits, according to some of the science, if you do something consistently for 21 days or so, it becomes a habit. It becomes subconsciously. You don't even think about it. You just do it. So in my last book, The Power of Self-Healing, I did a 21-day program. I just actually filmed a 21 days health transformational program in which I took the latest technologies, the latest things today, and teach people how in 21 days they can create a habit for life that will completely transform their health. Well, why did I do that? It's because I know that if I feed you every day, little by little, a thought that will help you think differently, that will lead to a new behavior, that new behavior will create a feeling in your life that would attract the life that you want to have in life. That is the secret of the formula towards achieving, manifesting anything you want. Yeah. It begins with shifting your thought, so it allows the new behavior to set in. The new behavior creates a feeling. Now it gives you a feeling like, you know what, this is going to happen. I can see it. I can feel it. And then you attract that into your life. That's why, you know, the experts tell you the biggest thing with visualization today, like we used to sit down and visualize. Let's say that you visualize that you're going to beat this cancer, right? You visualize it every day. Now the new science tells us that, yeah, you can visualize all you want to, but what's more important is for you to stay in a feeling that you already have healed the cancer. Yes. And how would you feel if you already have healed it? Stay in that feeling. And that feeling is what allows your brain to change because of neuroplasticity, which will allow you then to be able to heal potentially from the cancer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I eat it all up. I absolutely on the same page with you. Agree. I love the mindset component. One of the things that I know that can make this, you know, you obviously have a lot of momentum and life experience in the direction of this. So there's an ease and a grace to which you have a momentum in that direction. And sometimes when people are watching that, they can feel they can be tempted to compare where they're at. They can feel the distance between where they are and where they would prefer to be. And I think a good analogy, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is when you're dealing with this sense of separation from what you desire, which is really a sense of separation from yourself. Okay. Yeah. The part of you that if I had that, I would feel good. And it seems like a weird thing, almost like a lie or a delusion to try to give yourself that feeling ahead of the experience. And yet we're seeing now profound medical scientific evidence that it works. I mean, we've entered an age where this is not woo-woo anymore. This is practical neuroscience. And even at that level, I'm sure there's much higher metaphysical things at operation there as well. But like just the level we understand is already profound enough to have someone like see that this is a rational decision. This is not a stretch. However, one of the skills I know that a person must have is emotional intelligence. You have to understand what the role of emotions are. So I want to drill into that and get your thoughts on this as well. In my experience, a good analogy is thinking of it like everyone wants a sunny day, but sometimes when we step outside, a storm brews and it covers up the sun. It doesn't mean the sun isn't there, but there's the storm. And a lot of people want to take the pill or take the shortcut to just pierce through the clouds and get to the sun, and they don't see the value in the storm. That it's, the rain that it brings, the situation that it's calling you to look inward, right? And emotions I see as like nervous system weather. Okay. When we have a nice sunny day, we feel at ease and expanded, anything's possible. But when something triggers us, something in our environment, something in a relationship, an area of our life that we haven't really excelled in, finances, health, wealth, those kind of things, being willing to take a look within yourself and how you truly feel about that is going to raise up a thunderstorm. It's going to bring up that weather. And I think people have been trained to avoid that. I think they fear it. They feel like it especially, maybe it's my bias, but I think a lot even with men, So what are your thoughts on that? And I would love to hear what techniques. I mean, I want to know literally like if you have a morning routine, I want to know what goes on in your brain. Okay. That you do because I know even though you have momentum, you still have stormy weather come up, I'm sure. Doubts, things like that still come up. What do you do? How do you treat those as opportunities? What goes on in your head?
Well, it's interesting because when you live long enough, I'm going to be 59 this year. When you live long enough, you experience a lot of things in life. And if I go back to my history, I realized that, I lost my father out of a complication of a surgery. My brother was killed at 27 years old. We grew up in an alcoholic family. We had to move from Colombia to Miami, and I was put back 2 years of school because there was no English as a second language. I mean, I can go on and on. I've been betrayed. People have taken advantage of me in business. I mean, you name it. But the one thing I realized is that those challenges were probably the biggest blessings in my life because they allow me to appreciate what I do have instead of getting stuck in what I might have lost at the moment, right? It allowed me to grow. I often tell people that you have to learn and welcome being uncomfortable because it's the only place that you actually have growth. Mm-hmm. And the more uncomfortable that you can become, probably the biggest and the most successful that you'll be. Most of the most successful people that I know are some of the most uncomfortable people. You just learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. And it sounds kind of funny, but it is what it is. So then I would say that basic foundational for me is to realize that all the challenges that are coming my way, whether they're directly or indirectly, they're meant to be part of my life. So make sure that you don't try to push them away or ignore them or try to pretend that they're not there or whatever. Make sure that you embrace them and try to learn from it. Why is this happening in my life? What can I learn from this? What can I do different to ensure that this never happens again? This is where the true growth comes in. So the most important thing is to wake up every morning in gratitude for me and to allow life to be. I have no idea what life's going to give me, but whatever it is, I'm going to be with this big smile every single day and welcome it. It could be a negative statement. It could be somebody did something to try to hurt me. It could be, somebody didn't support something that I expected their support. It doesn't matter. What matters is it's okay. Whatever's happening in your life is happening towards your benefit. I always say to people, if you wake up every day understanding that all the stuff that is happening around you is the universe conspiring for your benefit, for your growth, for your well-being, then you will never judge it or criticize it or complain about it the way 90% of the people do. So that's foundational. The first thing I learned many years ago from Tony Robbins is that as we wake up in the morning, the first thing to do is to shift our physiology from going sleeping into activity. So right now, the first thing I've done for years is work out first thing in the morning, because it changes your chemistry, it changes your physiology. And now I ended up with a cold plunge, right? Because most of the study in the blue zones and all that showed that that's one of the best things that you can do for anti-aging. But it really surges your nervous system to the point that you just become awakened. It's like an enlightenment every single day, you know? And then as I work out, I may do a spiritual podcast or learning or YouTube video, or I may do it after. Sometimes I do it while I'm working out. Sometimes I play music while I'm working out. It depends. But I do every single day something to feed my mind. See, this mind of yours is just like any muscle. You got to feed it. You got to exercise it. And you got to be able to. Or I use my brain tab, which is one of the best technologies I've seen to shift your subconscious mind. So I do that in the morning. And then I prepare for the day. I talk about the three things that I think about the three things that I want to accomplish today. What are the top three priorities? And I begin my day with those three things. I don't put them for the end of the day. I don't try to schedule it in my schedule. Yeah. I realize that every day needs to be prioritized. I remember my dear friend Brian Tracy. And Brian said to me that our goals, for many years, he was teaching people to do their goals. And he would say to them, write your goals once a year and then measure them and evaluate them every quarter. Now he teaches people you have to rewrite your goals every day, because every day is a completely different day than the day before, especially in today's time, which is unprecedented. So every single day you need to prioritize what is important to you. So these are some of my hacks that I use every single day. And then, of course, be selective in what you do in your life. You know, choosing what you love to do and monetizing it accordingly, that's the secret to happiness. You know, a new study showed that over 80% of Americans are disengaged or do not like where they work. So that means that the majority of people are getting paid to do what they don't want to do in the first place. Why would you want to have an employee like that? You know, why not have people in your life that really want to be a part of that mission?
You know, that's a good segue, because, you know, it's the F word, fear. Fear. It's funny how fear works, because fear can seem so justified, right? We can, like, sometimes fear can seem so justified. You know, if a lion busts in the room right now, you might say I might be justified to feel fear. But the truth is, the best thing I could do is use that alertness intentionally. Okay. Nature's going to give me I'm going to have an adrenaline spike. I'm going to everything. And if I can channel that energy into proper action, I will increase my odds of surviving that situation, much so than if I let fear overtake me and then just, you know, become reactive instead of proactive. And I think that's the discomfort you have to face. You mentioned you do cold plunges. I like to do those as well. I definitely do a cold shower every morning. And people think I'm insane. I'm like, no, but
let's talk a little bit about fear, because I want to say something. You inspire something in me. And that is, I've been, you know, I have a mentorship program, as you know, that I have top CEOs, influencers, celebrities that I mentor. And one of the things that keeps coming up is fear. And what I boiled down early on in my career is that I realized that fear does not live in reality. It's only living in my mind. And my mind, when it's fearful, is expecting a negative outcome on something that I'm perceiving may happen. So it hasn't even happened, but I'm perceiving that it may happen. And now, all of a sudden, I expect the worst. So I expect a negative outcome. So I started early on in my life experimenting with that and realizing anytime I felt a sense of fear, I just learned to shift my mindset to say, what would the positive outcome of this be? And started training myself to expect the positive and never have fear ever again. So that was one of my key solutions to it. The second one that I've learned since then is the fact that you can't live in fear when you are in activity, meaning that if all of a sudden your fear is paralyzing you, you lost your job. Now you are like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to handle this? The car may break down. I don't have money for gas. I can't feed the kids. I mean, you start going crazy in your mind.
Yeah.
That fear, unfortunately, paralyzes a lot of people. In fact, one time I was talking to my dear friend, Bob Proctor, and Bob said all the years that he was inspiring people through his personal development, he said the biggest challenge that he found in people were that the fear prevented them from making a decision, and that it paralyzed them. And that paralyzation, that indecision became their reality. They never did anything because they never made the decision. Because I taught my children from very little, make a decision as quickly as you can, because from every decision you learn from it and you make another decision and you make another decision. And even if it's not the right decision, you can make another decision to make it better. But the worst thing to do is not to make a decision, is to become paralyzed. So I've learned that anytime I'm feeling fearful, I go into activity. So I ask myself a simple question. What can I do right now that would ensure that this will never happen in the future, or that this will never manifest itself? And I go into that activity. Okay, call 2 or 3 people and say, hey, do you know anybody that's hiring in your company? You know, I'm really needing a job right away. I was surprised today. My company's downsizing. I don't have a job. You know, maybe I'm going to go online and look for some potential opportunities that fit my skill set, my background, my experience. Or maybe I'm going to update my resume and send it out to a few people to see if maybe somebody may be needing my services in their company. So that activity completely shifts and removes and diffuses the fear that is sitting in your mind. So those are the 2 techniques that I've been using over the years, and they're very effective.
So let's recap those. It's just saying, what can I do? What's one thing I can do to move in the direction, regardless of how I feel? Let me just trust the action.
Right.
And what was the other one?
Yeah. Well, the question to ask is, what can I do, or what must I do now?
Okay.
Not tomorrow, no an hour from now, to ensure that fear never manifests itself, whatever that may be. And the second one is that whenever you feel the sense of fear, go into an activity that would allow you to get out of your head and go into your being, into your activity.
Gotcha.
And that's one of the best things you can do.
Gotcha.
And the other, activity can be something for yourself, or it could be helping somebody else. Very hard. I mean, they say that you can't be depressed when you're helping other people that have it worse than you.
Yeah.
You know, I had a friend of mine that was having a hard time financially because of his business, but then he started volunteering 1 hour a week at a hospital where children were dying every day of cancer. And he would do whatever he could do, dress like a clown, help in any way that he could. And he's like, what am I doing complaining when these kids haven't even had a life? I already have my life. And they may not be here next week, tomorrow, next month. And that reshifted him completely to have this courage to realize, who am I to complain? Because that's really the reality. There's always somebody that has it worse than you, and they're dealing with it and they're surpassing it because they're not allowing their fear to stop them and paralyze them.
Yeah. It's an interesting cocktail of like self-compassion, self-love, and accountability.
Yeah.
I think, what I've noticed anytime in myself where I've noticed that I've maybe let fear go on too long is because I had lacked enough self-inquiry to really ask myself, what am I really afraid of? Like, I think even that's the question, like, what is it? Like, and sometimes even having yourself will try to play out what's your worst case scenario that the mind's trying to give you. And you realize that sometimes you're like,
but you know
the
what's funny?
sun's not going to come up or whatever, you know.
You know what's funny is that your mind can, your brain cannot determine reality from non-reality. So fear is a non-reality that feels like reality. Yeah. A fear can make your stomach sick to the core. Yes. A fear can keep you up all night. A fear can make you sweat. I mean, it's powerful. It's a physiological change. And what I realized is that even though it's in the mind, it can be very real for people. And that's something that they need to understand, that they need to gain the control. They need to learn to control it to the point that they can not let it become something negative in their life.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about, we can choose our relationship with stress, right? And I think fear is a form of intense, it's a trigger, something triggers it, something that you've given meaning to. And I think what I'd want, come from the coaching idea here, what I want people to understand is that when you feel fear, what you're really feeling is energy in the body. Yeah. That's asking for action. And so if you could just know that, then it's trying to present you with an opportunity, but it's one that it's happening on such a primal, instinctual level that you actually haven't had time to process it yet. And so you haven't formed thoughts. And so if you become, oh no, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or you're reactive to the fear, then you get stuck in a loop. But sitting with it and taking that cold plunge of the mind, where you can relax into the body and sit into those waters of your emotions and just sit with them and trust them, and even give compassion to them and love and thank them for being there, like open up and receive them, trust the process. And what will happen is your mind will begin to congeal, calm down, and come to rational actions, or, help you move through it, whatever. It's that reactivity to that intense energy. I think that people, I've definitely noticed in myself, can be the issue,
Well, a lot of times people don't understand that when you experience something, that experience energetically creates a memory within your cells, right? And so that means that all of your experiences are living within you. But it gets worse. It's not just your experiences. It's everything you watch on TV. I mean, look at some of the things that people spend all this time watching, or maybe getting into some areas of life that can be very questionable. Why would you want to put yourself? So when we talk about fear, many times is those memory cells being activated that you have seen it somewhere in your life. Maybe you saw it with your grandparents, parents, teachers, environments, cousins, whatever. So you go there because of that, you experienced it. Maybe your parents experienced it. Maybe you experienced it. And then you start going to activating all the memory cells of movies that you watch. So if you love scary movies, you're going to have a lot of fears. If you like to watch dramas, you're going to have a lot of drama in your life. If you like to, so that's one thing that I tell people, pay attention what you feed your mind, because what you feed your mind is what you're going to live. It becomes your reality. Yeah. So just be careful with that, because a lot of times people, unfortunately, are feeding in their mind. Look at the kids that are playing video game, for 7 to 8 hours a day. I don't comprehend that, but that's the actual statistics. They may go to school, they may not, they may be homeschooled, but that's the average that they spend on video games. And what is the benefit of that? It's purely entertainment, and it's changing their brain patterns because of it. So I think it's important to recognize that these memory cells are actually real, and they're being activated not necessarily to punish you, but like you said, to give you the opportunity to put some framework as to what you want the reality of them to become. Yeah. Is this something that I should take seriously? Is there really the chance that this could actually manifest? And if it does, then what can I do to ensure that that does not happen? That empowers me, brings the power back to me instead of the thing that is happening.
That's awesome. So to kind of put a bow on all this, coming back to like the health idea, because this is all related, we kind of really drilled into this relationship with ourselves, because the point being that it's a foundational principle. I look at it like it's the energy, the potential, and we create from that first. That's the first. Everything begins as some type of meaning. We give something, we consciously observe it, give it a meaning, and emotions are a reaction to that meaning. A positive meaning, an abundance meaning, creates expanded emotions. A limited meaning creates a feeling of contraction that we call negative emotions. It's kind of binary in that sense. And if we have chronic limiting emotions and our body believes it's in a fight or flight too much of the time, we're not giving that balance, then what that starts to do is kind of poke holes in you or create that's the type of stress that's ongoing, that's not being resolved. You're never getting the break. And then over months, years, decades, the body begins to manifest physically the evidence of that in the form of pain, inflammation, and things, trying to send signals to go deep within and heal these things. And that's what we call instead of being in ease, we're in dis-ease at that point. So am I on point so far? This makes sense, right? So what I want to ask you is, like, it sounds like if someone is really, let's say they're dealing with a long-term chronic issue in particular, that's kind of the area I know a lot of people are dealing with. It might be a really good place to start with getting a coach or therapy. If you really need that assistance, if you're really feeling those stormy weathers, and learning how to navigate your emotions and learn the skill set, learn how to tie your shoes when it comes to your emotions, that will be an incredible start, because that alone may create profound healing. And then from there, look at the next layer, which might be like the movement and the physical things. And if there's any like nuggets you could share right now, Dr. Fab, on like how someone could make some good decisions in that area, some basic principles of like, dietarily, without going too deep in the rabbit hole, but just help someone navigate it so they don't get caught in the fad diet stuff and have, an eating disorder because they're trying to, keep up with the Joneses dietarily.
Well, I think it all begins with creating an awareness. I often say that I choose to live in the world of possibility rather than the world of probabilities, right? Probabilities is what people expect. Possibility is what I could create. So I think it begins with an awareness. So how can you become more aware? You can do some research on your own, right? You have Google to research. AI is a good search. ChatGPT is a good source for research. But then you can also be able to go to YouTube and see are there any videos out there. Go to Google and search for any podcast that maybe talks about somebody that has actually gotten over that condition. See, this is some of the things that people do not do. They just take somebody's opinion and they all of a sudden they say, that's it, I'm done. There's nothing else that anybody can do. That's what the doctor told me. And I'm like, that's just one opinion, man. We got almost 8 billion people in the world. You can have 8 billion opinions if you wanted to. So I think that looking at podcasts, YouTube, that's a good research. That's a good way to use the internet for creating the awareness. Once you have the awareness, you can take a step further. You can actually do research on studies that have been done where people have actually beaten that condition. I mean, when people were telling me that they had healed a condition that couldn't be healed, I went to the research and I saw paper after paper that have been done in this country, in other countries, where people had actually shown that that condition was reversible. But here, an opinion of a doctor was, no, you're going to end up, this is it. You're going to have to learn to live that for the rest of your life. And maybe it's going to give you 6 months, maybe not. And that becomes an opinion. So I do think research is good. So you know that there's some science, evidence behind it. And then I think the third thing will be what you mentioned. If you feel that there's a possibility for you to get over that condition, seek out either a provider, right? A provider that aligns with that philosophy or that way of thinking, or it could be a health coach that can maybe have a different set of expertise in that particular field. But get into that mode of understanding, seek out somebody that has a skill set and experience, that has a track proven record that it can help people like you. So that's the steps that I would take. And then ask yourself the questions, what is it that you really want? There's 3 questions that I love. What is it that you really want? Is it to reverse this condition, to improve the quality of your life? What is the condition keeping you from doing? So you want to focus on that. The second thing is, what is keeping me from actually attaining it? See, this is the thing that a lot of times people get stuck and they don't even know why they're stuck. You have to ask yourself the question, what is keeping me? Is it a belief system? Is it your mom and dad telling you that will never happen? Is it a friend? Is it your partner that doesn't believe that there's a solution to your cancer? So they're going to just be sad and grief and all of that, and you're still here. But whatever that is. And then lastly, and probably the most important question is what I asked before, and that is, what can I do today? What must I do today to ensure that I can get over this? What is one activity that I can do today? You know what? In my book, I talk about different options, but we found that exercising, creativity, whether it's painting, dancing, listening to music, stimulated the immune system. Other things were being positive, doing affirmations every single day to subconsciously change your mindset. Other things that people can do is surround themselves with people that make you feel good, that are very positive, right? People that say, Fab, you're going to get over this. We're right here with you, man, no matter whether it takes a year or whether it takes 25 years. I mean, one of my dear friends is Les Brown. And Les,
he's awesome. He's so awesome.
Over 30 years, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He's a 30-year survival in prostate cancer when people say he would never. And he attributes everything to his life work, which is motivation. Right? He's the number 1 motivational speaker in the world. Why? Because he lives it every day. And he's a testament to that. So it doesn't matter what you try to throw at the guy. He's been through hell and back. He's seen the ugliest of ugliness, and he's still here smiling and helping people every single day, because that's what gives meaning to his life. So that's kind of the way that I would suggest for somebody to start thinking about it.
Thank you. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, that's the world today. It's just everyone has this big choice to make, and it's either you believe in your own power and that you're, call it a divine being, or there's something much more to you than meets the eye.
Right.
And the evidence is legitimate evidence is really starting to point in that direction. We're talking about validating like biblical level healings. We're understanding how that happens in our modern time. Or you stay in fear and believe all that stuff is delusion. And that's kind of the narrative that kind of is the mainstream narrative. And I think it's an opportunity what we're experiencing in the world now. There's a lot of triggering and conflict because these things need to be brought up and resolved within ourselves. I mean, we got everything from AI to aliens to quantum healing. It's a crazy world, man.
The one thing that is very popular right now is biohacking.
Yeah.
Right. And all this new technology that has entered the world of wellness, from sound, vibration, lights, all of these things that actually have been shown to be very effective, and where people will swear, I had this and then I started doing this and now I don't have it anymore. I mean, I can tell you case after case that I've seen over the years, and I'm a big technology geek. I try everything out there. If I see that it works, I want it, and I don't even have a place for it. And I just keep getting them because I want to experience for myself. I want to experience everything possible. But because I learned the science of chiropractic and acupuncture and nutrition, energy medicine, functional medicine, all of these sciences that have come around is really, and especially when physics changed into quantum physics, and now quantum physics began to look at the body in a whole different way than we used to look at it through regular physics. I mean, the potential is so huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
It's
problem
amazing.
is that many people are not even aware that we have all these sciences that are actually proven. And where people have won Nobel Prize winners to introduce them to the world, there's enough science out there. But unfortunately, a lot of times they're viewed as, they're not holistic, they're not real doctors, and they get judgment because, you're not prescribing, so you can't be a real doctor. I mean, I never understood that. We, as chiropractors, we have been offered the opportunity to prescribe for as long as I've been in this profession, which is over 37 years, almost 38 years. And we have chosen not to go that path because we don't think more chemistry, more medications is the answer to a healthy society. There is no lack of pills out there, I can promise you that. But there is a lack of accountability for my behaviors and my mindset in my health. Yeah. And all I want to do is bring people to that stage of saying, okay, what's the problem? All right. What do you think we can do from a thought process, mindset process to change that? Let's work on that. All right. Now with a new thought of level, what would you do different that you've been doing? And then let's do that. And let's just try that for a week and let's just see how the body resolves itself. I'll give you one simple, quick story that will illustrate that. One of my biggest cases that came through my office was a lady that was the mother of one of my patients. And when she came in, she was very reserved. You can tell she didn't want to be there, but the son wanted her to be there. So he brought her in and he said, would you help her? So one of the questions that I always ask my patients for years, and I still do, is there anything that you have thought maybe could have contributed to your illness that you haven't told anyone, that you haven't shared with any doctors, that you haven't even shared with the people around you? I always ask that, and you'd be surprised what I hear. Well, anyways, immediately she said, it's my son-in-law. And I'm like, okay, tell me about him. So what happened briefly is the fact that she had one daughter. The daughter at 16 years old fell in love with this kid, ended up pregnant. The kid had the responsibility of now, what do I do with this kid? He became an alcoholic. Now the kid chose to marry the girl at 18 and he turned 18. They got married. They raised the child, but they had a very difficult life. And then the first couple of years were extremely difficult. And then unfortunately, one day the daughter had enough and she tried to leave the house and she ended up getting in an accident and dying. The kid lived, but she died. And he was her only daughter. So then fast forward the clock, all of a sudden, this lady, which now has only one granddaughter, only one grandchild, is living with his alcoholic son-in-law that she doesn't like. She loses all her money. She has nowhere to go. He says, why don't you come live with us? You can help me raise your granddaughter. She loves you. Now she's living with the enemy, the person she despises the most. Yeah. And her condition began then. Yep. When she moved into that house, she started developing all these skin conditions and all these illnesses. And that's what she never told any of her doctors. So my formula was very simple. I said, listen, before I do anything for you, before I touch you, I just want you to do one thing for me. I want you to call your son-in-law and I want you to say, hey, Jack, when are you coming home tonight? And Jack will say, hey, I'll be there around 6. And say, hey, would it be okay? I want to prepare your favorite meal today. And make him the best meal that you've ever made. Even if you have to buy it somewhere, just prepare a meal for him. He's coming home work. And then when he comes home, I want you to say only positive things to him. No negativity. Only positive things. I appreciate you giving me a roof over my head. I appreciate this. I appreciate that. And I know you're a good father. I know you're doing your best, et cetera, et cetera. Well, anyway, she did that. And within 2 days, 2 actual days, her symptoms completely clear. And it had been over a year that she's been struggling. I never had to do anything else.
Yeah.
It was a thought. It was an emotion that was causing her to be ill because of that anger, that resentment. And that's what happens. It's already obvious that emotions change our chemistry. And our chemistry breaks down our organs, right? So that's why it's so important to exercise meditation and gratefulness and forgiveness and being positive. Those are all the emotions that create positive hormones like oxytocin and other hormones that are really building the body rather than cortisol that breaks down the body. And that's the stress hormone that is really one of the biggest challenges that we have today, because the cortisol levels of people today are the highest that we've ever seen in humanity.
Yeah. It's we've created a culture where it has leaned very much in the masculine go, and there's been a lot of comparison stuff. Yeah. And you just need to, I tell people, you inhale and you exhale, you sleep and you wake. Life is supposed to have a rhythm to it. There's supposed to be time for go and then play. And you'll notice in the area of your life where you stop having that swing of the pendulum, that rhythm, you're going to stop making music, Yeah.
And also make sure that you make time for you. Like my first 2 hours of the day is my me time. I learned that many years ago. It's been almost 20 years. That time I had to get up sometimes at 4:30 just because I wanted to be up when nobody was up. So I would go to the gym at 5:30. I would do all my stuff before and I would get ready. By the time I got back from the gym, the kids were just waking up. And I was pretty much already dressed, ready to go. I could support, I could love, I could prepare breakfast, whatever. But I wasn't stressed. I already nurtured me. I already fed my bank account with so much positivity and so much health that I had a lot to give that day to my patients, to my work, to the community, to all my media, everything I did. But if I don't do that, I will break down too.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to begin with you and nurture you. I mean, I have so many ladies that are clients and they would tell me, Fab, I just don't have time for even a bath. I just can't, I don't have time for myself at all. And I said, well, you're trying to take care of your husband. You're trying to take care of your kids. You have a big Fortune 500 company that you're trying to run, Where's the break? So begin with you. Yeah. What is it that you love to do for you? What fulfills you? Yeah. What's your passion? What is one hobby that you've given up because of this? What is one thing that if you had no more work and you had all the time in the world, what would you do? What would be one thing that you did? For me, it was painting. When I was little, I used to paint and I used to love to paint and I do caricatures and all that. And it wasn't until I started asking myself those questions that I'm like, why am I not painting? So I went and bought an easel and I started buying paints and and that made me happy. That's one thing that I was not doing. Or whether it's dancing or reading a book or going to a play or a musical, do something that is yours, or hiking. We hike a lot because we find that when we're with nature, it makes us appreciate that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. And that gives us the hope that sometimes we lack as a human being.
Very awesome. Well, this has been amazing, Dr. Fab. I really, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You definitely live what you preach. And I would love for you to share first, is there a link? You've mentioned this book a number of times. I would love to pop a link here to it, the self-healing book. How can someone find that book?
If you go to my website, you can pretty much find everything from me, whether it's all my handles and but everything is Dr. Fab Mancini. So at Dr. Fab Mancini or drfabmancini.com, those are all my handles. Okay. And from my website, pretty much you can find anything you want to the books, my TV series, my podcast, everything that I do from there. And you also get access to some great positive things. And then I'm just doing the final editing for my 5th book that is coming out in a couple of months. So I'm super excited because I spent the last 3 days going through it one more time. We just did the photo shoot for the cover. Came out amazing. So I'm just really excited. So you can also go there, and whenever it's ready, we'll post it there. And
are you able to share Are you able to share the title yet?
We have a working title, but not yet because until we finalize it.
The topic. What's the?
It's about creating the life you want despite your circumstances. This is my first personal development book that I've been working on for the last 4 years. And primarily because I wanted first half of the book is all about how to shift your mindset. And every chapter has all these activities in how to do everything I talked about. because I realized that that is so critical to give people the how to, not just the what to do, but you got to give them the how to do it, because most of them don't understand how to shift, how to change that. And they have to be simple, practical things instead of something that most people will never do because it's too complicated.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the book is the latest behaviors, from leveraging AI to digital marketing to all the things that we have seen today to be able to have the biggest impact that you want to have in the world, or build any business you want to build, or scale any passion that you have. So I'm very excited about it. It's going to be pretty amazing. And I know people are really going to like it. I mean, I'm excited because I'm still speaking on my last book that was 10 years ago. And that book's still selling like crazy. But I felt like I needed to put it. I've been working on this one for a while because I'm so busy with the other ones and all the other stuff I'm doing. But then it's time that I just said to the publishers, it's time we get it out. So we're at the final stages, and then we'll release it in a couple of months.
That's awesome. Well, when you release it, let me know, because I'm going to get a copy. I'd love to read it, and then get you back on the show to talk about the book.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. And one last thing, you also have a mentorship program. I thought that might be interesting to mention, because someone who might be seeking some high-level community, some other people that are into maybe spirituality, biohacking, metaphysics. I've been to a couple of these, and they are such amazing places to it's just so cool to meet the people, I've had opportunities for me come out of it just from attending. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about that real quick?
Well, about 8 years ago, I was asked if I would create a mastermind, which I call the Mentorship. And I never promoted it. I just started inviting a couple of my friends that have asked me, hey, would you mentor me with this or that? And now it has evolved with some of the most amazing people in the world, extremely successful, high level, high value people that are here to really make an impact to the world that is positive. And we work on different things. We work on our physical health. We work on our business. We work on our mindset. I bring some of the biggest presenters out there, best-selling authors, celebrities that will come and share their secrets. And we meet, 2 or 3 times a year. And primarily, and we meet then every month virtually. But it's an opportunity that if somebody also wants to work with me, I have people that they want to mentor with me when it comes to the health of themselves and their family. So I'm taking care of quite a few billionaires right now that they have all the money in the world, but they don't know how to bring health into the household. They have young kids that are not as healthy. They have a spouse that may not be healthy. They themselves might have sacrificed their health to build their wealth. And then I have other people that just want to scale their business. They want to grow their business. They want to have a bigger impact, or they want to be a best-selling author, or they want to get on TV and be an influencer. All of these things. And it gives me an opportunity to give them 37 years of professional experience that they can benefit from and accelerate the growth process. And I love it because it gives me an opportunity to stay active. And I realize, they tell me, how impactful it is sometimes, just a simple advice that I may give them that nobody else around them is giving them,
Very cool. And that's on the website too. I assume we can find links.
You can find it all there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your biohacking and
Thank you, buddy.
speaking
I'm
and book
finishing
writing.
editing my book. I'm editing the book. That's my goal. I told the editor this morning, I will have it to you hopefully by tomorrow, if not the next day. But I'm trying to make the tomorrow deadline because I know they're eager to get this published.
Hopefully this conversation got you nice and geared up and primed for it.
Oh, yeah.
Got any fears out of the way. No excuses.
I'm pumped. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
All right. We'll see you next time.
See you soon.